Gentlemen, the time has come once again to discuss things.
Yes, let's get into Superboy.
Alright, hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Geeky Gentlemen. I am Superboy. Joining me today is...
Me, Steve, Baxi.
Yay! Steve, what are we here to talk about today?
We are here to talk about Connor Kent, Superboy.
Okay, and so, I'm gonna be honest, when you picked this, I was like, oh shit, I've only seen, like, part of Season 1 of Young Justice. I don't know a damn thing about Superboy. So, that's kind of my general reaction to you picking Superboy.
Okay, so to be fair, I've actually liked Superboy for a while. One of the first comics I ever read was a Superboy comic.
Cool.
Yeah. So,
Cool.
like, I figured your reaction would be something along those lines. Which is why I was hesitant to pick him, but then I'm also just like, I like Superboy, and I want to talk about Superboy. Superboy's weird, because if we're talking about him, you almost have to, like, assume certain things about him that didn't exist for a majority of his existence, kind of like Green Lantern. Where, like, now it's almost impossible to talk about Green Lantern outside of the stuff Jeff Johns made for him. So, like, Superboy is a clone of Superman and Lex Luthor. And he's best friends with Tim Drake. And he's on the Teen Titans. And he's got kind of a bad attitude. But none of these were things for, like, 200 issues of his existence.
Yeah, that didn't start till, what, the 90s?
He was made in the 90s, post-Death of Superman, so they didn't start until, like, the mid-2000s.
Oh, okay. Alright.
So, like, there's 100 issues of him being like this, and, like, 200 where he's not.
Oh, wow. That's funny.
So it's a weird uphill thing. I'm to the point where, like, if you just saw Young Justice and told me Superboy was one of your favorite characters, I'm with you.
Yeah?
That's okay. That's fair, because I can't give you a whole lot else.
There's no, like, definitive Superboy stories before the stuff where they made him a clone?
Not really, no. They're fun.
Gotcha.
Got a stupid costume, but they're fun.
And then, like, 20 years later, Jim Lee copied it for a shitty Wonder Woman reboot that only lasted 12 issues.
Pretty much.
Yeah. And see, Superboy's just one of those things where, like, you said that for the majority of his history, he's not this. You know, Superboy's one of the things, to me, in comics, I always assumed he was always around. It just seems like one of those, like, Superman family things that they were doing back in the 60s and 70s. I just kind of always assumed Superboy was there. I never really looked into the history of the character.
Yeah, Superboy only existed after Superman died, and we got the whole reign of the Superman thing, and that's where we got Steel, that's where we got Eradicator, that's where we got Superboy, and Cyborg Superman, and all that. But, and I felt the need to specify when I said Superboy Connor Kent, because Superman used to go by Superboy in, like, the Silver Age stuff, where you'd flash back to his days as Superman in Smallville.
That always seemed like...
Superboy was a superhero that has existed since the 60s, but Superboy did not.
Gotcha.
It's that thing. It's dumb.
No, just like, there's Supergirl. I'd known of Superboy's exist. I knew there was a character called Superboy, so I always just assumed, oh yeah, it must have been like one of those characters that no one really did anything with until the 90s.
Which is
just like one of those characters floating around. And so I'd always assumed he was there, because it's like Space Godzilla. It's just, you hear that and you assume, okay, that's obviously from the campy 60s. Nope, it's from the 90s Godzilla films. Of course it is.
Of course.
Why the fuck not?
How would it be?
It sounds like it's so from an era, and then you just know it's not. It sounds and it looks like it's from an era, and it's just not. And that's the funny part.
I think kind of a trend with some of the stuff, because the first character we talked about is Daredevil, and then we talked about Brainiac, and both of them I mentioned at some point like a visual component. Part of what I think makes Superboy so awesome is just teenager
Superman in black.
Yeah, Superman in black, just a teenager with jeans and a black shirt with a red S is the coolest costume. I was so happy when I went to Hot Topic and I got my Superboy shirt. I wear it almost all the time now. I love that black shirt, red S jean look. It's just the best.
I saw the picture you posted where you did the little S swoosh with your hair, and I was like, oh, Steve. I imagine that's how you go pick up dates.
It almost is.
If she gets the reference, we're getting married.
Yes. When I got out of the theater to see Wonder Woman, a guy just walked by me and says, "Great Superboy shirt," and I almost asked him out. Almost. Because my head goes, when you see people wearing Superboy shirts in public, they just think they're cooler versions of a Superman shirt, which they are, but still. So when someone actually calls it a Superboy shirt, I get excited.
Yeah, that's good. Oh, that's funny.
I admit, a lot of this is very shallow, but I have read a lot of Superboy, so it's not entirely.
No, it's cool. Like, he is... I liked what they were doing with him in Injustice. I like the fact that Superman was a shitty dad.
Yep. I like that too.
Like, of all the things that you would expect to associate with Superman, shitty dad was not one of them. So I thought that was pretty cool, little clever subversion of expectations. I thought that was a fun thing to play around with. I liked things about him in Young Justice, but otherwise, my exposure to Superboy in the comics... let's see here. I got Superboy Punch, and I remember a cover from New 52 where he's clearly a clone. That's about it.
I mean, that's fair. So Superboy, this is just worth putting in case people are like, what are you talking about, which version, yada yada yada. There's the original Superboy run, which is like, it's 200 or so issues, maybe up to 300. But it's one of those like 90s comics that lasted for fucking ever. And then he's a big character in Teen Titans, particularly when Jeff Johns writes him. And he's pretty much stayed a Teen Titans character until he died when Jeff Johns killed him. And then he came back, and Jeff Lemire has like a short-lived, maybe 12-issue run on Superboy where he goes back to live on the farm in Kansas, and it's one of my favorite runs of all time. It's just some of the most charming, relaxing comic book reading ever.
Nice. That sounds interesting. I'm loving Lemire's Black Hammer, so that might be something worth checking out.
Oh, and it's not like any Lemire you've ever read. It's just like, these are very cute short stories. It's like you're reading Darwin Cook.
Oh, nice.
Like, it's just some of the most... It's just so heartwarming. Maybe that's the word. It's just a really nice, heartwarming set of stories.
Cool. Now, let me ask you this, because I don't know if... Is Superboy around in Rebirth?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Connor Kent is not. But
yeah, I know Jonathan Kent is.
Yeah, so Jonathan Kent is now the official DC Superboy.
Okay. Yeah.
So Connor Kent is not.
Yeah, I was wondering if Connor Kent was around in Rebirth, and like, it seems like they're probably going to bring him back, especially with Young Justice coming back on air for season 3. It seems like that character is going to get more popular again.
I mean, I would hope so.
Don't get me wrong, I love me some Super Sons.
Me too. I think Super Sons is great. I love what Tomasi's doing with Superman, and I think his version of Superboy is kind of adorable and great, specifically with Damian.
Oh,
but
they're hilarious.
but like, I miss Connor Kent. I just think inherently that struggle for Superboy is really interesting, where he's a clone of Superman and Lex Luthor, but then at the same time, Lex wants everything to do with him because he's a clone of Superman, and Superman wants nothing to do with him because he's a clone of Lex.
Yeah, he's like the kid with two dads that got divorced.
Exactly. It's interesting. It's a cool conflict, and then he just naturally gravitates more towards Teen Titans teenage characters because he belongs there. But his friendship with Tim Drake is one of my favorite things, where like Tim Drake and Superboy have the kind of go out for breakfast together, joke about things relationship that I wish Batman and Superman always have.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like my ideal DC universe is progressing to the days where Superboy becomes Superman and Tim Drake becomes Batman.
After reading Batman Beyond with Tim Drake, I have very, very serious doubts that Tim Drake can ever be Batman.
Well, I mean, but that book sucked.
Yeah, and that's why. It's because Tim Drake was Batman.
It didn't suck because Tim Drake was Batman. It sucked because that setup and that writing was awful. Dan Jurgens can't write anymore.
No, I completely disagree, because now I'm reading his current Batman Beyond book, and it's pretty good.
You're the only person who thinks that, though.
Well, shit on them. I don't care, man. There was a gang called the Banes, and they were using the patches. That was cool.
Yeah.
Damian is now the leader of the League of Assassins.
That arc together.
What?
We might actually have to review that arc together. That might be fun.
I mean, Damian's now the leader of the League of Assassins, and he's fighting Terry, so you have, like, sibling rivalry going on. I don't know. There's a lot of cool stuff happening in that book. I like the new costume, but I don't think it's going to stick. It's okay. It's probably not going to stick. Fuck you. Fuck you and your entire family.
You can try.
Oh, wow. Anyway, no, but, like, see, this is what we always talk about when we talk about legacy characters, though. Because I agree. I do, just how many more fucking Bruce Wayne stories can we possibly tell is the feeling I have very often. Yeah. But at the same time, I just get really bothered by the idea of the new Superman's going to be this clone of Superman and Lex Luthor just forever. Doesn't that on any level feel weird to you?
I mean, I don't know. Like, the first comic I read that featured Superman wasn't a Superman comic, it was a Superboy comic.
Okay.
So, like, it's that kind of thing. So, like, okay, so...
Kind of like why I like
Eric
Vegeta
and I have talked about
Goku.
Before. Both of us had one particular comic that we both read a lot that was one of our first comics, that was a 2-part Elseworld story. And I always had the second part, never read the first. He always had the first part, never read the second. Which is kind of cool. But the story is basically like aliens come down to Earth, enslave everyone, and kill most of the superheroes. Batman's like half robot. Lex Luthor's brain is inside Metallo's body. Everything, Wally West's legs are broken. It's all kind of a fucked up universe. And I had the part where, like, Superboy and the remaining Justice League defeat the invasion, and at the end of the story, the world is saved, and Superboy has to get used to being the new Superman.
Okay.
And, like, so we've never done that, but that's always been in my head as this is what the eventual end of Superman. Superman dies, and Superboy has to decide how to be Superman. This is just where the universe goes.
And see, like, that does sound really interesting, but at the same time, I just imagine being a kid who, like, sees an old episode of Superman the Animated Series and goes, oh man, I want to go read Superman comics now, and goes into the store in this alternate universe where we finally let Clark Kent stay dead, and just picks up a Connor Kent Superman book and is like, what the fuck is this shit?
See, I don't know. I feel like it can work because so much of Connor Kent's character is, like, finding that sort of Superman-style optimism. He's not a, like, entirely lonely, brooding type character. He is sometimes, but, like, he gets over it, particularly after he dies and comes back to life and kind of starts to enjoy things more.
Gotcha.
Like, he's basically just young Clark Kent for the Jeff Lemire stuff, and he kind of realizes that, and he plays with Crypto, and he's a farm kid and everything.
And I guess this just kind of gets into the, I guess this just kind of gets into one of the problems of comics, because you're right, there is a very natural character arc there for Connor Kent to follow to become Superman. That is never going to happen, because fundamentally, you cannot expect new readers to come in and deal with all this continuity, right?
Sure.
That is like an unfair expectation. Like, it's that problem of, like, things can progress in comics, but they can't progress too far.
Yeah.
Because if they do, then you alienate new readers. And, like, it would be certainly fascinating to read a DC universe where they, like, kept Superman dead and kept Batman, you know, with his back broken, and never restored those characters as they were, never brought them back into that lead role again, and let the universe continue on. You know, Professor X and Magneto died fighting each other, and now it's up to the mutants to carry on from that. I would love to read that universe of comics, but that's because I had the privilege of coming into a comic book universe that was pretty standard, has a lot of the basics covered for me, so that I can pick up an issue and at least on some level be able to understand what's going on. You can't ask someone to do that if you just keep continuing a universe in this way.
I mean, that assumes a lot of comics staying the way they are as far as their literal materiality of how they're published and how we collect them and stuff like that. Because I get that and I sympathize with that, but I also feel like comics are doing a really shitty job of helping new readers anyway. So if we were like for example, the way we break up volumes and the way we create new ones and new number ones and stuff, if comics were just better collected and better organized, then coming into a random status quo and getting the history would not be that hard. But clearly they don't want to operate that way. I think the one issue a monthly format thing is stupid. I think the whole 4 Superman books a month thing is stupid. But these are also things that wouldn't change either. So, like, if you solved one of these problems, you'd solve the other.
Maybe, and it's just like it's hard to conceive of, you know, changing the whole business model and all this other stuff. But just as, like, a new reader walking into the stores, I don't think that that it would be fair to ask someone to just jump in the middle of all this continuity. And, like, you know, everyone complains about DC for rebooting every other week, but at the same time, you know, 5-10 years, there are new people who do have an interest in these characters, but I remember I was scared to get into comics because of the nature of them, the nature of, like, well, this Batman's on 700. I'm not going to read 700 issues to catch up with this. And I did legit have that thought. And so, like, that's why I feel like Connor Kent is a really good example of a character with a really interesting, really natural way to progress, but it's never going to happen because of the constraints of the industry.
I mean, and if we did Bombshell style, give one writer one book and just go to town on their own version of the DC universe, I'd be game for that too. You can have your DC universe if you give me, like, say, 2 or 3 books written by 1 or 2 people that play in some alternate reality where these kinds of evolutions have happened.
That would be fascinating. I would like to see that just as an ongoing thing.
This is the thing Marvel does that DC almost never, or literally maybe never, have done, which is giving an alternate universe an ongoing.
Yeah, because what, Spider-Man 2099?
Basically all the 2099 books, except, like, most of them got cut off before Spider-Man did, but then also the Ultimate Universe.
Old Man Logan.
Like, Marvel does this a lot. DC, well, I don't think, has ever done that.
Until Bombshells.
Except for Bombshells, yeah. Well, they had Earth 2 for a while.
Yeah, but that was crossing over with the main universe. So far, the only crossover with Bombshells is fucking Harley Quinn's Little Black Book.
That's true. What's it called? Batman Beyond, though. Batman Beyond does that. So they've done a few. There's no reason.
But even Batman Beyond's being affected by current continuity.
That's true. Okay, never mind.
Like, even when they started publishing Batman Beyond right before New 52, the whole point was it's Batman Beyond, but it's actually got stuff from the current universe in it.
Because Batman Incorporated was the thing. They used Hush as the first villain. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, there's all this stuff going on with that, where I'm trying to think of other stuff. You could say, like, the DC Animated Universe comics, but those didn't affect the shows, and the rest of the universe didn't touch it at all. Yeah. So, like, I wouldn't even think that counts. That's just, like, continued adventures of the DC Animated Universe.
They didn't even advertise it as a part of the general DC line, either.
Mm-hmm.
Like, most people didn't even realize those comics existed, the same way most people don't realize Looney Tunes is still going on.
Yeah, and, like, that's one of those things where this is weird that this keeps turning into a review of the comics industry, but...
It's going to.
I mean, it's like, Superboy exists because of that, though, right?
Yeah.
Connor Kent's Superboy exists because of the comic book industry. It's like, he exists as a side effect of, let's kill off the title character.
Yeah.
Because we didn't think this decision through at all. It is amazing to me that they had a guy sitting there for years saying, let's just kill him as a joke, and then they went with it, and they didn't for a second think of any of the anything about the implications of that.
Nope.
That
What's
is
also
amazing.
Funny is that, like, they literally had no other stories to tell whatsoever besides killing him?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I just
wanted to get him married, it didn't work
out. To the
out.
point where you're like, literally nothing.
Well, like, I mean, it's one of those interesting things about Superman is, like, he's the first comic book character, and for all intents and purposes, he's the first one to die.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you think big comic book character that dies and then they bring him back, you think that would have been done before Superman, but it wasn't. And that's weird.
And invented comic book death. And all of its horrible, horrible side effects.
Yep, pretty much. No, but, like, so Superboy exists as a side effect of that, of writers not really thinking everything through, and then they create a character, and they give him a really interesting motivation, but they didn't think his motivation through, because then he can never have a satisfying conclusion to his character arc, because your industry will not let him.
Yep. Pretty much.
So
he has to be in a perpetual state of angst.
Yep. And I guess that really fits for the whole Teen Titans thing, then, huh?
Oh, no, it absolutely fits for the Teen Titans thing. It's just at some point Teen Titans got to end, too.
Yeah. I always think it's weird that Dick Grayson's on the Teen Titans. I'm like, dude, you're in your 30s. Knock it off. Quit hanging out with all these children.
He's in his 20s when he becomes when he's part of New Teen Titans, he's in his 20s. He's not even a teenager when he starts.
That's weird.
It's fucked up. And it takes him like 40 issues before he decides to put on a pair of pants.
Wait, hold on. Let me think this through. How old would he have been when he was dating Starfire? And how old would Starfire have been when she was dating Nightwing? Is Nightwing that creepy guy who can't get a chick his own age, so dates a high school girl?
Oh my god, you're right. I never thought of that, because I'm just thinking about in relation to New Teen Titans. Yeah, oh my god, you're right.
I remember, like, meeting girls like that in high school. It was like, my boyfriend's 23. I'm like, what fucking 23-year-old's dating a high school chick? That guy's weird.
Oh my god.
Oh, shit, that's funny.
I can't stop thinking about that now.
And I mean, I guess if Connor Kent's a clone, then he's like a 3-year-old and he's dating Wonder Girl at one point. That's weird. How old's Wonder Girl?
Well, Wonder Girl doesn't really count because she's infinitely old, like Wonder Woman.
Okay, no, I wasn't sure if she was, like, created, like as a teenager or something, or if she was like raised.
Well, one of her 6,000 origins is basically Wonder Woman's origin, so...
Okay, not Donna Troy.
Okay, yeah.
I read this great little comic strip or like little comic panel, and it was Donna Troy signing her autobiography, and the guy was like, "This reads like a choose your own adventure." And she's like, "It may well be."
That's perfect. Oh my, the Teen Titans are really kind of fucked up when you realize pretty much all of them are actually in their 20s at that point.
Yeah, it's weird. No, but like, so I know Connor Kent dated Wonder Girl for a while, and I only know that because of Superboy Prime killing Connor Kent and Wonder Girl going, "Oh no, I loved him."
Yeah, Cassie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder how old she was when they were dating, because like technically she was dating an infant or a toddler, maybe.
I mean, at that point, probably more of like a toddler.
Yeah, because if he's a clone, then like how old is he, and yada yada yada.
Yeah.
There's some interesting ethical questions here. Oh, man.
Yeah, no, Superboy brings up some really weird, fucked up romantic relationships all throughout his existence.
I do love the idea that he is literally a child of divorce. Like, he is seriously like a child of divorce in a lot of interesting ways. He's used and played with in that way by Lex and Superman. They're both like, it's like the dad's trying to bribe him with better Christmas presents than the mom or whatever.
Well, that's basically what it is. Marv Wolfman has a thing when he wrote Teen Titans that he said that part of the way they structure the team is this like triangle method, which is every character has two other characters that kind of make up their personality, and then that one character has two conflicting influences. And so, like, if you actually look through every character that's ever been in Marv Wolfman's Teen Titans, they all kind of pair up this way, which is really fascinating and really methodical. So, like, it sort of lends to this theory that the perfect Teen Titans character, while presumably, allegedly being a teenager, they work if they're part of a triangle method. And I was talking to Cap one day and saying that part of the genius of Gotham Girl is that she's kind of the perfect Teen Titans character when you like pair her off as Gotham and Batman. But Superboy has this too, even before he joined the Teen Titans, where like he's got Superman and Lex Luthor, but then he splits down and he's got Wonder Girl and Tim Drake. It's kind of fascinating. He's a really simple character with a triangular relationship that makes him really, really complicated.
Yeah, and I like that. I like that they do play with stuff, and just the implication and what they did in season 1 of Young Justice when like it's revealed that he's a clone of Lex Luthor and all that stuff.
And he gets addicted to the patches that make him more powerful. And
yeah, I really like that. That was all really, really neat and just interesting to see. So yeah, it is like it's that total comic book thing of take something that's like real life and exaggerate the hell out of it with super science and bullshit mumbo jumbo and use that as your metaphors. Like, people are making weird points on Twitter from time to time. It's like, what if instead of characters being allegories for a thing, we just let them be that thing? Like, yeah, sure, but I feel like you're missing the point of the allegory then.
No, that's fair.
Yes, we should have openly gay characters, but I feel like you're missing the point of what they were trying to say with the allegory before it was okay to even suggest that we should have openly gay characters.
Sort of misses the whole, like, performative, do the thing you're not allowed to do, so at some point you realize everyone can do it thing.
Yeah, it's weird. People don't think through their points very often. It's kind of funny.
It's kind of sad. No, I agree. I don't remember because it's been a long time since I've read the Superboy ongoing, the original one. Young Justice did a thing that they may have taken from the comics that I don't remember, where Superboy doesn't have the same powers as Superman, and he will never get them. So, like, he can't fly, and he doesn't have heat vision, for example. But that doesn't mean he's not super strong. He doesn't have all of other Superman's powers. And he's also resistant to certain things that Superman isn't. like kryptonite and magic. So
so he's magic resistant. Interesting.
yeah, but like at the same time, like there's stuff he literally can't do, and he can't outlast Superman in a fight. Which is cool and interesting. But like part of what Lex does in that show is he gives him the patches that temporarily override the human side of his DNA, so he gets access to the full sort of Kryptonian powers.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of endlessly fascinating. Where like the father that isn't ignoring you is making you more like the father you wish wasn't ignoring you, but that because it's an addiction makes you constantly go back to the father that isn't ignoring you.
Again, it's totally like, here's your brand new car, love me more.
Yeah, right? Absolutely. It's such a cool thing to think of him as like that divorced child, and they did a lot with him. Now that I'm thinking about it, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's in like, okay, so to take the divorce metaphor, you got like the one parent who doesn't have time for the kid because they're working to take care of the kid. So you got like the working parent, and then you got the parent who does have time because they're not around as much. So they have time to bribe and kind of make the kid fall in love with them. So you got like the working mother, and the father's working, but he only sees them on weekends kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
That's really interesting that they're able to work that kind of relationship that... I mean, it's sad that exists in the world, but it's a relationship that exists. I speak as a child of divorce.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And then at the same time, it's also just like so much of what Superboy's arcs are in the mid-2000s going forward, when he actually becomes T-shirt jeans wearing Superboy, is realizing that he doesn't need to be like his quote-unquote parents, and like sort of the Teen Titans as his family, and like Tim Drake having the perfect life in a lot of ways, but that still means he's able to relate to and help Superboy through his imperfect life. Like one of my favorite issues of Jeff Lemire's Superboy, one of my favorite issues of comics in general, is Superboy just came back to life, and he hasn't told Tim yet. And this is the point where he's Red Robin and he doesn't want to admit Bruce is dead. And so he just goes out and they fly, and like he's on his bike and Superboy's just flying next to him, like hanging out. And the comic just ends with like Tim Drake needing to hug him.
Aw.
Like it's just one of the sweetest things. I love it.
Cool. Just cool. I'm interested in the Jeff Lemire run. I didn't realize it was going on during the return of Bruce Wayne and stuff, because that's when I started reading current, honestly.
Okay. Well,
the first current comic I ever bought was Return of Bruce Wayne #1.
Oh shit. Okay, yeah. Then this is right around that time. Jeff Lemire's run is I think Jeff Lemire's short-lived Superboy run is the biggest crime of the New 52, because if that kept going, it would have been an instant classic.
Interesting.
And as it stands, it's only like 9 or 10, something like that, issues. It barely got off the ground.
That's disappointing, because it does sound fascinating.
Who
wrote Superboy in New 52? Who wrote Superboy in New 52?
Scott Lobdell.
Oh, meh.
So that stuff was awful. Scott Lobdell wrote Teen Titans and Superboy, and every week the books would come out together, and every week both issues would be the same story from two different perspectives, which sounds great, but it sucked.
Would have been great if it hadn't sucked.
I mean, I liked Superboy's New 52 costume more than most people. I kind of thought the Tron look was better for him, but like it was still a shitty book.
Oh, New 52. That's kind of how everything ends. Like, honestly, this does kind of work, except not really.
Yeah.
Except it sucked.
This was awesome, except because it wasn't.
Oh, man. All right, well, I don't really have much recommended for Superboy, except to say I liked some of what they were doing with him in Young Justice, but I didn't watch Season 2 of that show for a reason, which is just didn't care that much, so...
Which is fair. Season 2 is not very good.
I don't even... Honestly, I cannot even tell you if I finished Season 1.
That's fair. Season 1 doesn't end great either.
There's some good stuff in it. Except for the stuff that sucks. That could be like every review from now on. Every time we do a Geeky Gentleman review time, it's like, there's some good stuff in here, except for the stuff that sucks. Oh. Okay, so what are your recommended things for Superboy?
So already there's the Jeff Lemire run. Jeff Lemire's run is, I think, the best Superboy run. At the same time, that's not saying necessarily a whole lot. But then before that, you can get through Jeff Johns' Teen Titans run, which, if you like Teen Titans like I do, then there's a lot of stuff to hate in that run because it undoes a lot of the best stuff from the classic Titans. However, if you look past that, there's some really cool, interesting new places that certain characters go, particularly because Tim Drake wasn't around at that point, Superboy wasn't around at that point, so Jeff Johns has a take on those characters that didn't exist before. Those are both really, really good recommendations. Probably go back and read some of the old ongoing. It's weird. The old ongoing didn't have, because I like to recommend everything in runs, and the old ongoing didn't really have like any set of like, here's that chunk of 20 out of 300 that you should read. But it basically track it until Superboy gets the black shirt and jeans. After that, it's worth reading.
Okay, cool. All right, who are we gonna talk about next time? Let's talk about the Yautja, the Predators.
Oh, that's fun. Oh,
Just
we can
like-
do non-comic characters?
Oh, certainly. I just, well, I mean, to be fair, they are in comics.
But they didn't start that way.
No, certainly, but this was character profiles. It did not have to be limited to comic book characters. I'm sorry if I gave you that impression.
I don't think you did. I think I just assumed.
You know what they say when you assume, Steve?
It's true.
You're a giant asshole that no one likes. That's the saying. When you assume things, you become a giant asshole that no one likes, Steve.
That sounds like a Parks and Rec joke. I feel like that's a Parks and Rec joke.
I don't know. I cannot get past the first 5 minutes of the pilot for Parks and Rec. I've tried on 3 separate occasions.
Just start season 2. Season 1's really bad. Just start with season 2.
Okay. Maybe. Someday. Yes, let's talk about the Yautja, the Predators. Just
Cool.
as a race. It will be a race review instead of a character review. Or
Okay.
character discussion.
Let's assess the value of this race from our comfortable areas of privilege.
Yes, exactly. And we will decide what they will do for us afterward. Maybe work in the
Colonize.
fields. Oh, dark joke. Someone made a point. I was talking about Nick Spencer's Captain America run and how Cap has concentration camps for the Inhumans, and I was like, he's keeping the Inhumans in inhumane conditions. And they're like, you just made a joke about concentration camps. I was like, but it was a pun about Inhumans too, so that makes it okay.
There's some ethical juggling going on there, but it's really funny.
Ethical juggling is the best kind of juggling.
It is, isn't it?
Okay, everyone, thank you very much for watching. Until next time, I'm the Philosopher.
And I am the Exile.
And we are your Geeky Gentlemen. And we will be discussing things.